Welcome back to another edition of Political Breakfast here on WABE. We are always glad that you are here, our loyal listeners, and with us are our loyal strategists today, Brian Robinson and Tharon Johnson. And we have a very special guest joining us as well, and we're going to bring him right in because he has a busy, busy day ahead. And that's Senator Jon Ossoff. Senator Ossoff, welcome to Political Breakfast, and thanks for taking the time because we know you're legislating and stumping at the same time.
Lisa, thank you so much. And Tharon, Brian, great to be with you, and to everybody tuned in across the state. This is your Senator Jon Ossoff. It's a pleasure to represent you.
Tell us, how's that re-election campaign going? They started throwing darts at you early on with some of those campaign ads, didn't they?
Well, that's a great honor, Lisa. And it is very early to see that kind of spending. And I think it demonstrates that the national GOP understands the strength that I'll be bringing to this re-election campaign. It's unusual for those super PACs from out of state to begin putting millions of dollars into attack ads in the spring before the election. But, Georgia is the preeminent battleground state in the country, and this Senate race here in Georgia will be the main event next year.
It will.
Well, Senator, I want to talk to you about, I know that your office does a fantastic job of not just, responding to certain parts of Georgia. You pride yourself on being a candidate who represents all of Georgia. And I know you've been doing some bipartisan work in Washington. And I share it with everyone, Lisa and Brian and Lily, the work that you're doing with Senator Murkowski around pushing back on targeting immigrant children, this Trump administration. Talk to our listeners about how that came about and, in your sort of GOP relationships, and you've been very vocal against some of the actions that the Trump administration have been taking lately.
Thanks for the question. And this is an interesting case because of the subject matter. I've got a great working relationship with Senator Murkowski of Alaska. And in fact, I've got very strong working relationships with most of my Republican colleagues. I have focused on building those relationships because in the U.S. Senate, in order to get things done for Georgia, I need to work across the aisle and build broader coalitions to pass legislation. Much of the oversight work that I've done, whether that's investigating the mistreatment of military families at defense installations here in Georgia, or corruption and civil rights abuses in our federal prisons, that work has been bipartisan. Most of the important legislation that I've passed, big and small, has been bipartisan. And here you have a case where the Trump administration has decided to deny children, unaccompanied children, who are in immigration court, many of whom do not speak English, do not have parents or clarity with respect to who their guardian is. They may be orphans, they may be trafficking victims. These are literally the most vulnerable human beings in the United States. Toddlers, 6-year-old kids. And they're there in the dock in immigration court with decisions that judges are about to make that will have a profound impact on their lives and their safety. And the Trump administration has decided to deny them legal counsel, which is likely illegal, and which I hope that we can all see, regardless of our politics and our ideology, is certainly immoral. And Senator Murkowski joined me in launching this inquiry and demanding that the administration explain why they are denying these children legal counsel. And it's significant, and I'm sure Brian can appreciate this in particular, given how much pressure these Republican lawmakers are under to constantly display their loyalty and never to question the president, that Senator Murkowski, a Republican, would join me in criticizing and demanding answers with respect to this aspect of the Trump administration's immigration policy.
Well, Senator, thank you so much for being with us. And it's great also to have your communications director, Jake Best, who's a great fella. We are in a small fraternity of communicators on the politics side here in Georgia. And I wish we could all get along as well as Jake and I do. We mentioned the ads already being run against you, focusing on the girls' sports issue.
He's playing for they, them. Call and tell Senator Ossoff, stop dunking on defenseless girls. They deserve fairness, not his bracket-busting liberal game plan.
I was a bit surprised by your vote on that particular issue. And it seems to me like Democrats should just move past this trans issue. Just Americans by majorities are with the Republicans on these issues. Why is that a hill to die on when there's so much at stake for you going into your reelection year?
It's the GOP, Brian, that is obsessed and preoccupied with this issue. And I know that Republican political consultants in particular are very focused on this issue. I was reflecting the other day when this issue was before the General Assembly in Georgia, the state legislature here. The bill's supporters were unable to identify even a single case, even before the Georgia High School Association banned trans participation in high school athletics here. Not a single case. It's the GOP, Brian, that is obsessed with this as a culture war wedge issue. And, you know, if we look ahead at the next couple of years and think to ourselves, what's going to be top of mind for constituents as they make decisions about who's going to represent them and lead the country? Is it going to be youth sports administration and whether or not federal bureaucrats at the Department of Education, which, by the way, I thought the administration wanted to abolish to return local control of education to the states and localities, whether or not federal bureaucrats are investigating the sexual biology of adolescent student athletes? I don't think so.
Senator, I know that you were in Emmett Park this weekend and you walked the parade, and it just reminded me how you and I would be together with your hero, my hero, Congressman John Lewis, who I know you care deeply about, and his family, and you continue to uphold his legacy in the work that you've done. But I also just got to ask you a question, man. What are you hearing when you go across the state? Like, are people upset about the economy? Are people worried about the cuts from Doge? Are folks still very concerned about healthcare? I know you led the efforts with, getting our postal service together, but, what are you hearing from Democrats and what are you hearing from Republicans? Are they just opposite of what they feeling, or is it some striking like similarities as far as like their concerns about the economy right now?
So here's what I'm picking up. In the last couple of weeks, I spent a lot of time with constituents. I've been meeting with business leaders across the state. Let me talk first of all about the business community. Long-term business planning right now is paralyzed by uncertainty about economic policy. And there's kind of two pieces to this. There's what is the policy and how do you implement that policy? The administration has not resolved what its trade policy is. The president's economic team is at war with itself, leaking against each other. You have, depending on the hour or the day or the week, a different trade policy from this administration in such a way that businesses can't plan major capital expenditures, don't know what the rules of international trade will be, and are paralyzed. And that is having a huge negative impact on business activity in Georgia and across the country. You also see it in consumer sentiment and how households are thinking about planning their family budgets. There is so much uncertainty because of this administration's gross incompetence at implementing whatever it is their economic policy will eventually be. It's putting tremendous headwinds on the U.S. economy. The other thing that I'm picking up, and I'm hearing this not just from Democrats, but also from independents and Republicans, is a sense that the administration is out of control, that the president is consumed by his desire for vengeance, that, for example, his attacks on universities across the country, the way he's trying to shake down law firms to do pro bono legal work for his pet causes at risk of losing access to federal courthouses, the way that he is so focused on crushing his opponents and critics, rather than focused on the daily concerns of the American people, is actually frightening people, Tharon, because we've never seen a president consumed by this passion for wielding the power of the government to crush his opposition. And it's un-American, and I think much of it is unconstitutional, and it has people deeply concerned about the future of our republic. I'm hearing that, and I think probably even Brian is hearing that in private from some of his friends and colleagues. I'm hearing that across the political spectrum.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm a free trader, so I've had my own issues that I've been very clear about. And one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because while I love a good policy discussion, we are a political show. We like to talk shop a little bit. One quote from you over the last week that I've seen in media really caught my eye. You were talking about the CDC workforce reductions, and you said everyone should be speaking out, including the governor of the state. Obviously, Governor Kemp is somebody that Republicans are recruiting heavily to run for the seat against you. He would clear the field on our side if he did that. Was that a shot across the bow? Was that a marker laid down on the ground for Governor Kemp that you're ready to take him on?
It was an appeal to elected leaders in both parties here in Georgia to defend one of the crown jewels that our state can claim. The preeminent global health and public health organization in the nation and in the world is being gutted. And it is deeply foolish from a public health standpoint. We will be paying for this disassembly of our research and public health infrastructure for decades. And if the federal government comes into the state of Georgia and recklessly and foolishly fires a fifth of the workforce at one of the assets we are proudest of as Georgians, then I think all of us as Georgians, whether we are Democrats or Republicans, need to defend that asset and defend the contributions that the CDC makes, not just to the nation, but to the world.
Is there somebody that you're hoping to face? I've seen you throw some chum in the water for Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene lately.
I am ready for any challenger, Brian. The pool is open.
Let's go, John. That's why I be telling us. See, y'all, that's the job.
Ask him that.
I know.
No need to ask him that. Also, of all the issues looming and facing the nation and more specifically Georgians, which one concerns you the most?
Look, I think that day to day, the economic mismanagement is a real threat to our state's future and our nation's future. But Lisa, I think even deeper than that, it's the gross misconduct of this president, the abuse of power by this president. And you all have observed me in public life. You know that I am judicious. I try to be thoughtful about what I say. I'm not often out here making partisan comments. I am trying to speak plainly and directly about how deep this political crisis is. When you have a sitting president who is abusing his power, targeting his critics and opponents with official power, shaking down the legal profession, trying to take political control over academia, trying to consolidate his own power in an unprecedented way in a country that was founded on a rejection of monarchy and one-man rule, and brazenly and repeatedly defying federal judges. If we take his name out of it, and we take the political parties out of it, and we just zoom out a little bit, I think that we can all see that this is unacceptable. And I think that I have a duty as an elected official, and I think that my Republican colleagues in Congress also have a duty as elected officials in the legislative branch to balance and check and constrain an out-of-control president.
Well, hey, man, I know you running. I thank you so much for, being a friend for so long, and just really appreciate you, listening and participating in this podcast. I know your staff listens to us. I get the feedback, and just want to give a shout out to your official office, who is great when it comes to constituent services, and just really appreciate your friendship and your leadership over the years.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time no matter what. You're always there and authentic and answers the question no matter what's going on, surrounding your campaign and your role in office. So we appreciate that as well.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I want to thank you guys for creating this forum where you've got Tharon and Brian. You've worked on opposite sides of the field, but here you come together for a civil conversation about the issues that face the state and the country. And Lisa, thank you for being such an able host and a convener of those conversations. And to everybody out there, Tharon mentioned it. My highest priority is providing the most exceptional quality of constituent service that you as a Georgian have ever enjoyed from a federal representative. So if I can be of any help to you in any way, just reach out to me and my staff. We're responsive, we're available, and we work for you.
And let me say, in a spirit of civil discourse and bipartisanship, that what the senator just said there is absolutely true. Their constituent services are second to none. I think he really picked up the mantle laid down by the late Senator Johnny Isakson, who had a tremendous constituent services staff, and you've carried on that tradition. So hat tip to you, even though I don't agree with how you vote on every issue. Obviously, we're on different sides of the aisle and different sides of next year's election, but I do appreciate looking out for Georgians who have an issue with the federal government. So I do want to make that very clear. Thank you for coming on and making time. I mean, you're going to get some, friendly fire from me every once in a while. So I admire it.
You're used to it.
Thank you. And look, I'm a junkie, right? Tharon and I do this show because we're junkies. We love this stuff. And buddy, you are going to be at the center of the most exciting race in America in 2026. And it's going to be right here. We're going to have a front row seat. So I know you're going to work your can off, and hopefully my side will too. And we'll see what happens. But this is going to be so much fun to watch.
Thank you. Until next time.
Thanks, guys. Take care.